What is happening, Stripers and Stripettes? This has been an awesome week. We're coming off the back of Mayakoba 2024, the initial inaugural Liv Golf event of the season. We are just happy to be able to get this going and talk about this because this was a great event. I really want to say thank you to Sergio and Wako Neiman for actually finishing out the playoff, 4 playoff holes deep with no light out in the middle of winter is not fun because obviously, you run out of light eventually. And they really were running out of light. I mean, I saw how dark it was out there, and they would occasionally show the real actual darkness without the camera filters, and it was intense to see. And they understood the truth, though, is that with the fact that they're going to Las Vegas this week, starting on Thursday, everybody's literally loaded up this night, last night or this morning, and are now in Vegas now. And so for them to finish the tournament that night was super important for the league, for the production team, for everything. So good on them for doing that. We just want to talk about kind of preseason expectations and early season expectations for every team now that we finally have all roster situations confirmed and everything else. We would have done this earlier prior to last weekend, but everything was kind of a little late. And also with the first event, you get kind of a chance to see where everybody's at physically. Did somebody pack on 30 pounds in 2 months? Mentally, is somebody not really there, or just see the vibe differences right now? 13 teams in Liv Golf. We're going to kind of go in reverse order of teams that I think have the biggest problems available to them right now, and then going up to the teams that I think are going to do the best. Ultimately, by the way, guys, this is kind of my tracking of Liv Golf right now throughout its history, through its very young history of Liv Golf. Things have been going crazy. Obviously, the DP World Tour 5 wins that we saw from the Liv players of Dean Burmester, Louis Oosthuizen, and then also Wako Neiman, picking up all those wins this winter really helped change the landscape for Liv Golf for the better, as far as showcasing and increasing the accountability and reason that Liv Golf players can win outside of Liv Golf, which is huge for the league, by the way. It really is. When you're seeing players of Liv Golf winning outside of Liv Golf, that to me is a big indicator of the league's strength. And yes, we had seen, prior to that little stretch, we saw quite a few wins on either the Aussie PGA, one coming from Cam Smith immediately after joining Liv. We saw, of course, Brooks winning the major, the U.S. Open, and then, was it the PGA or the U.S. Open? PGA, sorry. I don't know why I get those mixed up all the time. I know why. It's because they played them out of order this year. Normally they would play the PGA dead last, but they changed it to where the U.S. Open got played last, which was really weird, or after the PGA. So it got really weird in my head. Anyway, PGA champion Brooks Koepka. Anyway, so we go back to this, and so we had those 2 wins happening. We had a couple of Asian Tour event wins that were happening as well, and those are all really important for increasing the accountability of the league. But this winter, we saw technically 6 wins happen for Liv players outside of Liv Golf. One from Abraham Ancer winning, of course, the Pan American Games. We saw 2 from Dean Burmester, 2 from Louis Oosthuizen, all on the DP World Tour's Sunshine Tour co-sanctioned events, where they have like 4 events that are played in South Africa in the winter. And then we saw Wako Neiman win at the Aussie PGA. Huge events for everybody involved. But now if you can see the aces who were originally the up-and-coming, dynasty thingy for Liv Golf, we now see that Crusher GC with their continual podium finishes. And that's the big thing, that the Crushers pretty much just know how to get on the podium and be on the podium nearly every event. If you look at their history, they have podiumed 13 times as a team. 3 individual player finish wins, 1 from Charles Howell, 2 from Bryson DeChambeau, a playoff loss from Anirban Lahiri, and they are just really good at getting on the podium, which gets them, success points in my parameter rankings, which is really just what I'm talking about here. So Crusher GC are now the all-time leader as far as most successful Liv teams, as far as raising the standard of Liv. which is good to see that the Aces aren't just running away with it. They were initially because they were, that first season, that 2022 season, they were really, of course, the only fully formed team early on, and the roster was just too good. I mean, Taylor Gooch, Patrick Reed, when your weakest guy is Pat Perez. Now, granted, Pat Perez is not great overall, but still, it's all right. It's all right. But here, guys, this is what we talk about going forward. Where are the Liv Golf teams themselves, and how are certain teams looking this season? As you can see, I'm rocking the Majestics GC gear. I am a Majestics fan just because I love the colors. I love their social media presence, and I think that they have opportunities ahead of them. I am not ranking them dead last, though, so don't be that person who's like, why aren't they dead last? They're not dead last, okay? Stop it. Just stop it. Dead last, in my opinion, is nothing more than talking about Ironheads GC. I'm just going to go ahead and fix this. I don't know why I have it like this. But yeah. So Ironheads GC. I don't have much expectation for this team this season. They picked up Junichiro Kazuma, and that was really their only movement in their roster. They really... yes, they got rid of Siwon Kim, which getting rid of Siwon Kim in and of itself is a huge boon to that team. Danny Lee did win the Tucson event in a 4-man playoff last year, but again, beyond that, he didn't show very much. This past weekend at Mayakoba, the overall team just looked really weak. Junichiro Kazuma's 5'5". I don't expect much out of him, period. Sorry for all my short kings out there. I know traditionally golf wasn't a game that really needed to be big and powerful and strong to be competitive in, but the golf landscape has just changed so much over the past 25 years thanks to Tiger Woods, so you can blame Tiger Woods for that. And other players like him who really changed the game to where it really does matter to have good size and strength. I know Junichiro Kazuma played well enough to qualify in a Liv, but now that he's here, can he deliver? I don't know. Mayakoba is kind of a tough place to gauge how the whole rest of the year is going to go for everybody, because Mayakoba is arguably the toughest course that they'll play the entire season, with the exception of maybe Doral. And it'll be interesting to see how Doral handles up in a regular Liv event versus being the team championships, because it's a whole different game. They still have Kevin Na, the captain. Whether or not I would like to see him be truly given more ownership actual ownership of the team. He and Martin Keimer are rumored to be the only two who don't actually have ownership points of their roster, which is kind of hard to really understand what that means or what that looks like going forward. I was sad that Junichiro Kazuma beat out Laurie Cantor in the playoff for the promotions relegations event. I think that's why Kieran Vincent is not on the Ironheads, because they looked around the entire league and said, okay, I don't really know where we can shove Junichiro Kazuma and it make any sense whatsoever, so we're just going to shove him on the Ironheads. I think that's kind of what happened. And so, sadly, the Ironheads are paying the price for that. I don't see them doing really much this season unless, of course, Kevin Na and Danny Lee or Scott Vincent just pull one out of their backside and get a top 3 finish, or even sneak a win, which can happen. Okay, I'm not saying it can't happen, but yeah, Ironheads still dead last. And the reason why I initially had them above Majestics GC, because Majestics GC, I just thought, no changes this offseason. Players are that much older. They're this much older. What can they really do? However, this season, a big change happened for Liv Golf, where now on Sunday, the 4th man is actually a counting score. Now, they couldn't do this last year due to Siwon Kim. They couldn't do that last year because of Siwon Kim. That just wouldn't work. But now that there is no Siwon Kim, they can do that. And they can actually, have the 4th score counting on Sunday. And because of that, certain teams that they may not have the ability to go really deep on their top guy or their top 2 guys, but because all 4 are more, they're less likely. They have 4 guys who are less likely to shoot 4 over or worse because of something like that. they're actually in a better spot than some other teams. And so that's kind of why Ironheads are still so low. I don't have much faith in their four-man roster to not have somebody still that just goes out there and can't shoot 75. Or doesn't, or, you know what I'm saying, like, you know, is having a really, really bad week. I hope Junichiro Kazuma plays better overall. You know, he didn't C1 Kim it at Mayakoba, but he didn't really impress me. That's kind of the best way to put it. If you look at their placings at Mayakoba, Danny Lee finished worst out of the team, shooting a 6 over for the week, putting him at 48th. Not good for a former winner. If you look at tied for 38th, you have Scott Vincent and Kazuma. So Kazuma and Scott Vincent both were down there super deep, a little too deep for my comfort for an actual team player. Kevin Nod did pick up points. He finished tied for 17th, finishing 3 under for the tournament, shooting 1 under every single round, which is solid. A top 24 finish. Like I said, gets live points. That's kind of what you want from your captain for every single event, but nobody really ever threatened anything the entire week. So yeah, Ironheads still 13th team. They went from 12th from last year to 13th this year because of that. Next team on the list, in my opinion, really has to be the Range Goats. The Range Goats changed the roster, overhauled so hard. You got Bubba Watson out there, Peter Uline, and Matty Wolf, who are bombers. And this team really is, honestly, in my opinion, if you look at the roster, they're the roster that should be called Smash GC, based off the fact that, Bubba Watson is your shortest hitter off that team. Peter Uline's a deep ball player. Matty Wolf's a deep ball player. Thomas Peters is a deep ball player. But, man, you got two guys who are really, they might shoot 6 under. They might shoot 8 under. They might shoot 90. You don't know. And this week really proved that. Peter Uline finished 51st with 11 over. He did have a decent Sunday, but 8 over first round, 3 over second round. It looked like he was getting something back. Maybe he had some severe poo-poo pants, which was apparently going around. Apparently there was some problems with some people forgetting that you don't drink the water in Mexico. Apparently people just forget that. Come on, guys, you should know better than that. Don't drink the water in Mexico. Thomas Peters honestly played solid, but as far as like scoring, but because he never had a low day, he was tied for 43rd down there near the bottom, 1 over, 2 over. Matty Wolf seemed to get something together the last day. He went, he was 3 over for the first 2 days, then 3 under the final day. And then Bubba Watson was your best player for the week, finishing with a score of 2 under, tied for 21st. This team is one that regressed so hard. Bubba, I don't know why the transfers were made. I wasn't a part of. I'm not part of the conversations. I don't see anything. But the Range Goats are the 12th team in my opinion right now, and the reason why is because that 4th man on Sunday really hurts them. Because the question, at least in my opinions right now, and the reason why is because I don't know which Matt Wolf or which Peter Uline or which Thomas Peters are going to show up. Thomas Peters, I feel like, is the most consistent of the guys. So if I was going to rank the players 1 through 4, I would say Bubba Watson's your number 1 right now, which is not good because he hasn't been playing good since he's been on Liv. He's had some respectable finishes, but he's never really threatened for any event. So that's kind of a big question mark there. It's not good when you went from your number 1 being Taylor Gooch and an in-shape Harold Barner III to now a questionable Bubba Watson. Number 2 on that roster is Thomas Peters, simply because Thomas Peters is more consistent and more likely to keep a consistent number. In this game, we're talking about consistency. Yes, Matty Wolf and Peter Uline have gone super deep before in Liv Golf. They have had big rounds and big moments, but they've also had really disgusting rounds as well. So the consistency factor is key. I think Bubba Watson is going to be better for Matty Wolf's mental health game. However, I don't know if he's going to be too potentially laissez-faire and just create problems. We don't know if Bubba Watson has enough structure in his game to be good for Matty Wolf yet. So that's because of that. Range Goats are the 12th team in Liv Golf right now, just because of that. After this weekend, initially I had a different team at this spot, but after seeing it, I got to put the high flyers down here. Wow. Andy Ogletree didn't have his stuff this past week. That's okay. Phil Mickelson, though, I got to see more from Phil Mickelson. Wow. Yeah. So if you look at this roster, Ogletree got together on Sunday. He shot 1 under par. 8 over, though, on Saturday, to where the high flyers actually had to count Phil Mickelson's 6 over par round on Saturday. That is really rough. When your team is having to take a 6 over score, it just pretty much removes the good stuff that Tringale and Brandon Steele are doing. And this is not a good situation for them because, the high flyers are one of the few teams out there where there is no question that your number one player is not your captain, or not at least a captain, as some teams would be. So, Tringale and Steele are the number 1 and number 2 on that roster. You can swap them out or interchange them. I would put Steele as number 1, just because Tringale's never won a pro event. And so that's kind of the only reason why I wouldn't put him there. I see Tringale more frequently up in the leaderboard on Liv Golf, but Steele's actually won an event in his career and actually been in the Liv Golf playoff. He was in that playoff in Tucson. So that's why I put him up that high. I think Ogletree, when he gets really plugged in and good, will be just fine. But the real question mark here is Phil Mickelson. Look, there were a lot of players that came into this season with some baggage or some drama, and Phil didn't. And for him to be that far down on this roster, 3 shots above last place, but, tied for 51st. He's not getting any younger. It's a question mark, and it's a big question mark right there. And because of that, I think he'll have his moments this season, but I don't put them any higher than 11th place right now. They are the 11th ranked team right now, simply because, again, the 4th man counting on Sunday is that big of a deal, folks. When you can't hide somebody's score on Sunday, that really makes a huge difference. And it's one of the reasons why they got held back so hard. Because, again, you can't hide a bad score on Sunday. You can hide a bad score on Saturday, and on Friday, you can't hide a bad score on Sunday. And Phil Mickelson's score on scores this week were just not in any way helpful. Next team. This is going to come as a surprise to you guys. This team will shoot up in the rankings once they get healthy, once they get their minds right. But right now, it's got to be the 4 Aces. And I know that's sad for me to say that, right? 4 Aces have insane talent. Going into this season before all of the fun stuff that happened off season happened, I looked at the 4 Aces and I said, man, this is going to be a great team this season. But then 3 things happened that really changed my opinion. One was, again, the week of the tournament. They announced that the 4th score counts on Sunday. So again, this is another team that the 4th score counting on Sunday really changes the landscape for them. Because now, if Patty P's not having a good mood, now Patty P has some great rounds that he throws together out there somehow. However, he has some rounds where something happens, he mentally changes, and then snap. It's a whole different Pat Perez. So that was a big question mark for me. Also, Harold Varner is not Harold Varner right now. Harold Varner got a DUI up in Atlanta this offseason, and whatever was going on in combination with that is clear and evident right now on the golf course. He shot 14 over. He looked distracted. He looked not himself. And this is not the range goats, Harold Varner. This is somebody else, at least for right now. Then the third thing, Pat Perez is going through a tough divorce. It shows on his body as I think he's dropped like 20 or 30 pounds. Traditionally, with men, you can actually tell if they're happy in life by if they're putting on weight. I know that sounds weird, but it's one of the common themes in life with men is that we tend to lean up whenever we're stressed out or pissed off or not doing so great. But when we're happy in life, we tend to put on some weight. Pat Perez has dropped like 25 pounds since the last event. He's going through an ugly divorce. He's been called all kinds of silly stuff by a vindictive ex. And it's showing up on the golf game whether he wants it to or not. And obviously these guys are consummate professionals who are excited to play golf and do their job, but it's going to show up in your golf game. And that's just the way it happens. It's not intentional, it's just the way it happens. Pat Perez, it's showing up in his golf game right now. Because of these issues, the four aces are right now as far down as they are, despite the fact that Dustin Johnson looks healthy to start the season off. He wasn't having any lifting issues. If you remember what happened last season, he was saying he threw his back out because he was picking up his wife, picking up his wife. What's up? And then, of course, Patrick Reed is also playing well as well. Both of those two are going to carry the team as hard as they can, and probably, I expect the individual categories to win several events. But as of right now, Pat Perez and Harold Varner III are holding them back. Not intentionally, just because of where things are at. So the Aces are right now my number 10 team right now in Liv Golf. I know you're probably all of us are a little surprised that I have the Aces this far down. So just to recap: Ironheads 13, Range Goats 12, High Flyers 11, Aces 10th. Now let's go to number 9. Number 9 shouldn't surprise anybody at this point. It's the Majestics GC team. Heinrich Stenson, Lee Westwood, Ian Poulter, Sam Horsfield, all looking healthier than they were last season. Again, they're older, and they didn't get any younger, and they didn't make any roster changes. However, a big boon to them, and I've mentioned it so many times, I'm going to keep mentioning it because it's important. That fourth man counting on Sunday, that's going to keep them in the competition so much more often than you may think. And it's simply because while nobody on the Majestics really showcases right now the ability to drop a 7-under round, nobody on their team really showcases the ability to be beyond 4 shots worse than the average score of the field, if that makes sense. We always talk about strokes gained, right? Strokes gained on the field, strokes gained on the field. I don't see Majestics ever really having anybody on the roster shooting 4 strokes or worse than the average scoring for the day. They keep their scoring tight. They're pretty close together. They all 4 relatively have the same abilities right now. So that's because of that, and because of that fourth man situation, they're my number 9 team. You go to number 8, and number 8, it's going to be a little controversial for me to pick anybody at this point, but this is the last one that kind of might make sense. This is going to be the Cleeks. Adrian Moronk, it's going to take him a little bit of time to get used to the format and get, ready. But once he's good to go, he's going to be a beast mode. Richard Bland is still somehow pushing back Father Time. I mean, there are some 50-year-olds on Liv, with Phil Mickelson and Lee Westwood. But Richard Bland, being that I guess he never was the man throughout his entire career, is still making all those strides to be the man at his current age. Martin Keimer is kind of the captain that I think most needs to get pushed out of Liv if he can't make something happen soon. And by something happen, I mean we got to see something special. I got to see something out of you because, hey, even with Phil gave us a second place finish at the Masters last year. So even with Phil Mickelson, we got something. Kevin Na never really has anything special, but he never has anything horrible. He's just consistent, and that's what you want. But Martin Keimer's been all over the place. He's not counted for an insane amount of rounds for a captain. And he's, yes, he's been one of the original captains for Liv, but we got to see something from you, Martin. Kayes Samua has been a great pickup for the Cliques as well. He, of course, won the Live Promotions event. And I think that the Cliques this year are much stronger than the Cliques of last year. A lot of it depends ultimately on, is Martin Keimer Martin Keimer? If he isn't Martin Keimer, then he needs to be somebody else. Going on to the number 7 team, and this is kind of where we're going to start seeing some separation between the teams that really have it together and the teams that can have it together. We're going to see this next team is going to be Ripper GC. Lucas Herbert, great signing. So, now we have, Cameron Smith, Lucas Herbert, Mark Leishman, the big 1, 2, 3. However, that fourth man, Matt Jones, is still kind of a question mark. Matt Jones is not a Jed Morgan, though. If you saw, Jed Morgan actually has the record for most rounds not counted in Live Golf. I think it was like 38 rounds he was not counted or something like that. Before it was my friend Jay Conrad on Twitter who posted it and showcased that, Jed Morgan didn't count hardly ever. So Matt Jones, the real question becomes then, if that's the case, obviously we got rid of the player that wasn't putting up numbers that actually counted. So with that being the case now, here comes the question with Matt Jones is, we know that your scores were counting. Can you improve your scores to be counting? And again, I think Matt Jones is way better at fourth man situation than Jed Morgan was. However, how much better are they overall? We don't know yet. Ripper GC, though, definitely look a better team, ranked 7th as far as team structure goes right now. So we're moving on to the 6th team. The number 6 team, in my opinion, is, of course, Smash GC. Smash GC, so much better this year, so much more consistent overall. What really held them back last year is you had Matt Wolf, who clearly didn't care about Smash GC, didn't like Brooks Koepka, just wanted to be obstinate and defiant and crazy. Kokrak is now the 3rd man as Taylor Gooch has come on board. The Gooch is a whole much better signing. He didn't have a great week this past week, but this is a much better Smash GC team. 1 through 4 is so much better. GMAC being your 4th man instead of Chase Koepka, holy cow, that's a huge change right there. Would you rather have Chase Koepka out there who, you're just like, can you please shoot even par, or GMAC, who's somebody who, has won a major and just, overall is still competitive, still showing up, hasn't done terribly much, but when you see him on the leaderboard at Live Golf, you're not completely confused as to why he's there, or thinking it's the other person. When it was Chase Koepka, sometimes you thought it was Brooks Koepka. But anyway, Brooks is looking hungry, coming out strong at Mayakoba. Was a good start for him this year. Gooch looked a little off. Kokrak, Mayakoba is not favorable for players like Kokrak who are bombers. So again, we'll see how they play at Vegas. I expect a better finish from them here. The issue really comes down to the strength of the 4th man is still not as good as some other teams out there. This next team, number 5 team, is Legion 13. They showed up strong. I had them way lower prior to this tournament, but coming out, getting the win in round 1 was huge. Tyrrell Hatton looked a little off the first 2 days. He didn't look bad. He just looked off. And then he comes out and posts a 7 under on Sunday. John Rahm was doing his work, getting himself on the top of the leaderboard. I think he finished 3rd, at the end of the tournament. Great job. But the big question mark and the reason why I had them so low, Kieran Vincent, who is, a pro on the rise, but not a well-established, good pro. He's an Asian Tour promote. Well, okay. Asian Tour promotes are always kind of questionable with Liv so far in their history. But then, of course, you have 19-year-old Caleb Surratt. Now, obviously, Caleb was handpicked by John Rahm. But at the same time, you don't know. You don't know what that means. Is it just, hey, we want a young kid. Okay, cool, I want that young kid who, looks like he has some good talent. Caleb Surratt proved so much resilience, especially on Sunday. Holy cow. He came out Sunday and shot 4 under. He had a really tough, he started off doing really well. He was 3 under through the first 9 holes that he played. goes to hole 16, bogeys, goes to hole 17, has a triple bogey. Okay, now he's 1 over for the day. The lead is shrinking for Legion 13. Maybe this is where he blows it. His last 5 holes, he birdies 5 straight. He birdies his last 5 holes, shoots 4 under par, finishes 5 under for the tournament, tied for 13th in his first professional tournament. Insanely good finish for him. The kid showed that he can play. And more importantly, he just erased any doubt in my mind that he is going to be one of these transitional question marks. Because a lot of times with these young guys, when they transition to the pros, there's 2 types of transitions, right? There is the transition that is, hey, I'm here, I'm ready to win, let's do this. And there's the rocky transition where it's, I have the game, I have the ability, but I'm shaky, but I'm shell-shocked, but I'm having trouble adjusting to the bright lights. I was nervous. Maybe that might be the case for him. A lot of my fears are erased simply because of how tough the Mayakoba course is. And anybody out there can say, yes, that is one hell of a tough course. Caleb Surratt proved us all wrong in that regard, and that's why I have him as the number 5 team right now. They can obviously move up. They won the event in Mayakoba as the team. Let's see what happens going forward. Number 4 team is Fireballs GC. Fireballs GC had one roster change, putting Carlos Ortiz over onto Torque in place of David Puig. Sergio Garcia came out the gate strong. I was really hoping that he'd finally get his win. You know, he's had 2 playoff losses now, but you know what? He's doing just fine. Abraham Answer is looking a whole lot sharper now than he was start of this year. Last year, it was weird. Guy won the Saudi Invitational, which is not a Liv event, but there's most of the Liv athletes are on there. Most of Liv's players are playing that event. Eugenio Chikara has done so well so far for being one of those recent amateur promotions. He's won on Liv Golf, and he's won on the Asian Tour after a 9-hole playoff last year with Matt Jones. So this is a team that I expect good things from. I have them right now as that fourth seed. We go over to the 3rd seed. The 3rd seed is Torque GC. They could end up being number 1 before it's all over. Carlos Ortiz is kind of their 4th man right now, but you have a top 3 that's insane, all younger players, which is also huge. But Joaquin Niemann's finally in form, really finally in form. Last year he looked off, and I think a lot of it had to do with adjusting to captain responsibilities and getting his back-of-house team in order. It seemed like he didn't have maybe that last year. We don't really know. We're just glad that it's sorted out now. He's looking solid. Sebastian Munoz is solid. Mito Pereira is solid. This team could have many, many team victories, team podium finishes, and also just individual victories and possibly some majors in the near future. I expect big things. 3rd-ranked team right now, only because of the question mark of just how good is Carlos Ortiz at this moment. We don't know. We will find out. Number 2 team is Stinger GC. A lot of this comes down to because of the 4th man counting. Dean Burmester and Louis Oosthuizen are looking sharp. Charles Schwartzel had a 2nd place finish on the DP World Tour this winter. He's looking sharp. He is the original winner on Liv Golf. Brandon Grace, of course, won the 2nd event. Brandon Grace has also had several playoff finishes. It's kind of questionable who the 4th man on that roster really is right now. It just feels week to week. But I believe this right now, that Stinger GC are a consistent roster. They are essentially, Stinger GC, in my opinion, right now they are the slightly younger and better equipped Majestics. I think that's fair. They are the slightly younger and better equipped Majestics as far as being able to compete week in and week out. And that's why I have them so high, because I don't really see a weak spot on their roster. They have a clear identity as the South African team. They have guys who can win, will win, and are competitive. And that's just where I see them. Which, of course, leads us to our number 1 team overall. And, again, they finished this past week and actually claimed the most successful spot on Liv as far as franchise situations since the inception. They are a team that did not have a roster change either last year, but they are really, really good. Crusher, GC, Bryson DeChambeau, Paul Casey, Charles Howell III, Anirban Lahiri. Bond will get a win at some point this season. He just will. He has to get a win at some point this season. Charles Howell is so competent, so skilled, never really makes the big mistake out there. He finished 5th place, tied for 5th place with Dustin Johnson and Brooks Koepka at 8 under, shooting 3 under, 2 under, 3 under. No weekday in that man's roster. Solid play. Paul Casey had finished tied for 11th, 1 under, 2 under, 3 under, and Paul Casey's someone who you would say is the 4th man on that roster right now, and that's the crazy thing about Crusher GC, which what makes them so good. Anirban Lahiri, tied for 21st, Bryson DeChambeau tied for 25th. The Crushers don't have a weak spot on their roster, and any one of them can win a tournament any week, and you wouldn't be surprised. This past week, this is the first event on a course that doesn't fit Bryson's game at all. Doesn't really fit anyone that hits the ball to Deep's game at all. Their worst finisher on the team tied for 25th. That's the Crusher GC situation. That's what makes them so good, is that even when they're not playing good or the course is not fit for them, they are still a good team. They are still able to podium as they finished 2nd place in the team event. And that's what makes it so big because, again, Sunday, you can't hide a bad player, right? You can't hide a bad player on Sunday. Crusher GC doesn't matter. There is no weak spot in their game. Any one of them can shoot 4 under any day of the week and not be confused by it. So they're still the number 1 spot. Legion 13, great start for the season, guys. What are your guys' thoughts on this? Am I off? Am I crazy? Am I smoking crack cocaine? What's going to happen in Vegas? We'll talk to you on 54 Live Podcast, going into things deeper and more rationally about the individual play and such. But see you then, pimps.